Well, would you mind sharing a bit about your journey?
So depends where from. The start. We'll go from the start. It's always a great place. So I guess I was in foster care when I was younger. I went into foster care at about 7 years old. I was bouncing around foster homes till around, I'd say, 9, 10, and then I found my then were to be long term foster carers, and I really settled there. Obviously, I was running away and things like that when I was younger, but they were the ones who really helped me. Um, and then from there, I was playing football, but my aggression at the time was not in line with the rules in football. So we, I thought, well, they thought it would be best for me to do rugby, and I knew that I'd want to do it. And so I started playing rugby, and then from there it kind of took off. Like I got a scholarship to Denstone College, which was my school. Um, I got into county, and then what was academy, and then England. So it kind of went from there, and things went really well. From there, I went to University of Bath, as you know. um,
Mm.
Played for Bath Rugby. Went on the X Factor. Celebrity dating and TV and music and all. That's when everything really happened. Was later on in my life when I decided what I wanted to do. At 18, at 20, sorry, I also decided to go to music school, and yeah, no, that's really the short version because I don't want to bore you with the long version.
How did that affect your mental health being in foster care when you were younger?
When I was younger, it was one of those where you're kind of unstable because you don't know what was
Mm.
happening next and what was happening with you. Um, I guess being taken away from your parents at that point as well was almost a bit of insecurity growing up, and it took me a while, especially with becoming an adult and things like that, to get over those things. And when I was younger, like 12 years old, I used to have counselling and things like that. But it's for me, that's all part of like the process of becoming who I am, and also where I want to go. Like it was all without all of that, and without all the shit parts, there'd be no point in the good parts. I mean, it'd be a pretty boring book if it was fucking great from the start, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I do feel like so many people don't talk about the shit parts as well.
Yeah, you're right. You're right for sure. It's definitely been something that I think it's part of my identity, which it is, and that's something I always will talk about if it's ever asked. And um,
Mm.
it, it makes me who I am, and it is part of what makes me want to go where I want to go. So it's yeah, no, I think it is important to talk about.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me asking, what was it that you were dealing with and going to counselling for?
When I was younger, it was just anger issues and stuff like that. Nothing in particular. Like it was just
Mm.
like dealing with the situation at the time, and becoming a young adult in a world where I hadn't really even been a kid. So it's like, well, what do I do here? I was just a confused kid. So.
Yeah, recently you've come out as bi. How did that all go down? And what was the reaction like? And did that have an impact on your mental health? Because obviously, from the outside, it looks like everything's going really well, but inside, I'm sure that caused a bit of difficulty.
To be honest, it was probably the other way around. Like before I had come out as bi, like that was probably the biggest thing that was, especially in like the later stages after X Action and things like that. Why I'd cause like self destruct, like I'd just go on the piss, and I'd never had that much money in my account before, so I'd just use it on alcohol, and it kind of just went spiraling down. Like I was just like, this is bad. And that's probably one of the main reasons. But after that, to be honest, it's like I've been great again. Like it's just been something that I think I just needed to get off my chest. I mean, I've made it very clear that I want a wife and kids, but sexually, that's how I am and that's how I feel.
Mm.
Sorry, I just you know. I know exactly where I want to go, and people go, "Oh, how do you know you want a wife and kids?" I'm like, well, it's just something I've wanted since I was very, very young. But it's not just the choice; it's like how it's who you are, and so
Mm.
I found that not airing that was it was detrimental to me. So I felt like
Yeah, for sure.
the best action for me was to say it. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and what made you kind of come out with it at that time? Like, because you had obviously been dealing with it on your own, not talking about it for ages. What made you want to talk about it when you did?
Well, originally I told the Bath Boys during lockdown, and then after a little while, I think it was about a good 4 months. I don't know, 4 or 5 months. I just think with everything that was coming out at the time in terms of BLM and people being the world just being kinder at that point, I was just like, well, if other people are struggling as well, and I'd gone for a good year and a half of it, I feel confident enough in myself to do it now, and it was actually the best thing to do for me. And so, you know, just by controlling the narrative as well, it was important to do it at that time. I believe anyway, and my management helped me, and it's something that I appreciate them for, and I'm just ready to crack on now and just focus
Yeah,
on
for
what
sure. And do you find it annoying that it is like it even had to be a big deal?
yeah.
Like it shouldn't be a big deal, but you felt like you had to kind of do the announcement and all of that and like speak about it. But for example, in rugby, there aren't many bi guys or gay guys, and it shouldn't be a big deal, but people do make it out into one. How did you deal with that? And obviously, you got a great reaction from your Bath rugby team, but what was the reaction like from everyone else and family and friends?
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, like as you said, on the big deal front, like if a girl comes out as bi, it's not a big deal at all. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, great. And I think that's awesome. Like the girls work, especially rugby women's community is great. I've got loads of girl friends that are in the rugby side of things, and I've actually experienced some of that culture as well, and it's awesome. They're all great. And to be honest, it's been the same in the men's side as well. They've all been great. They've all been awesome to me, and I've had nothing but good messages and things, from that. Especially with my Bathmet teammates, my Ealing teammates. Now, I've not had one negative message, and so that's new, especially in today's society. But I think that as as far as changing that narrative in terms of the fact that it being a big deal, it shouldn't be, as you said. So I think the more people that do it, the less of a big deal it becomes.
Yeah, for sure. And it's great that you're so unapologetically yourself and you're true to yourself. But for people who don't have the courage, maybe, to come out about it yet, or don't have the courage to tell their friends and family, what advice would you give them?
Um, I have said, before, be unapologetically yourself. But I mean, what does that mean? What that means to me is, you've got to live with yourself, and as I said before, you've got to live in your own head, and therefore you have to make it a good place and space to live in.
Yeah.
Nobody else has to be in that mind, and I think that by opening it, it might not be the right thing for other people coming out. It might not be, because there are other stresses around it. As you mentioned, I've not had many of those, but there potentially are in outside of um, outside of family and friends. Fortunately, I'm in industries now that are very aware of it. Music is like, there's that would be the right place
Mhm.
for it, other than dance. And then rugby is very aware about mental health and things like that. And so my industries that I operate in are very supportive, whereas in the world of other people, whatever they might do, it might potentially not be the case. I don't know, but it's all about them being confident in doing it. It wasn't one day I woke up and said, I'm just going to do it. You know, it was a long process of figuring out, you know, who I was and what I wanted to say, because that was the biggest thing. People, you say something and then people are like, oh well, what about this then? Are you sure you're not gay? Or like, how can you have one wife and kids if you like, you know, there's so many questions, and if you don't have the answers for yourself, then it's important that you take time and understand where you.
Bad days when no one else knew, what did you do to kind of get by and make yourself feel a bit better? I know you've touched on anxiety and depression before. Are there any things that you could recommend for people, just little things that they can do to help themselves?
I'm not exactly the best example for that, to be honest. I definitely think seek professional help, because they won't tell anybody. You know, it's confidential. I think that's important. Speak out to close family and friends, but that's also the problem, is you don't know if you want to tell your close family and friends, and so
Yeah.
I'd say the professional help route is best. And like, yeah, don't really. I think that's the most important thing, because it's confidential, and yeah.
Yeah, and I guess always to remember that you're never alone in any situation. Mental health at the moment, more so than ever because of the pandemic, I think people have had to slow down, and it's safe to say they're in their own head a lot, probably realizing things that maybe they hadn't before. They're actually having to think about things that they've been distracted by in the past. But yeah, I guess just remembering that you aren't alone. So many people suffer with mental health issues. I think the statistics say it's 1 in 4, but I actually think it's more like what 4 in 4, because it's,
Yeah, I like that. It's true. It is true.
yeah, I think everyone experienced a drop in mood during the pandemic or some sort of mental health issue, and it's just nothing to be ashamed about. But the only way to kind of destigmatize that is by talking about it.
Exactly. And exactly that. That's exactly one of the reasons why, you know, I was talking about the bisexual. We were talking about being bisexual, like
Mm.
talking about things and normalizes it. It's the same with racism. It's the same with
Yeah,
mental health. It's the
everything.
same with everything. It's more education. It's more understanding, and that is, I believe, the key to untwisting all this shit.
What does happiness mean to you now?
Me, happiness means
Yeah.
to me, oh goodness, I'd say, I like that question. It's deep, and I'm a deep person. I would just go with just living life to your fullest. So cliche, but what I'm talking about, I can't remember what model it's called. Now I can't remember what model it's called, but effectively, it talks about it has like different
Is it the
circles.
hierarchy of needs?
It's something
Maslow.
like that. It's something like that, and just fulfilling all of those.
Mm.
That's happiness to me. So that would be my professional thing, which is, you know, it all ties into one, but it's my music, my rugby, my sport. Then you have family and all of that. I think happiness is just finding a balance of all of those things. And to be honest, like, I love music because I can just express myself, and then rugby allows me to express myself in different ways. It's, yeah, happiness is just, I don't know, just cracking on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your music. So, do you express yourself mainly through your music? Because some of the songs you've spoken about anxiety, is that where you kind of turn to?
I wouldn't. I don't even know. Like, it just comes out. Like, I think when I write, my writing process is I think about a melody, or I hear something and I'll be like, oh, okay, right, that's cool. What can I do with that? Oh, and then I'll go in my notebook or on my voice memos, sing it in my phone or write it down, and then I'll come home and then write the song, and then send it off. And so it's a process, but I'd say that a lot of it just comes from small moments of inspiration. Like, I can't really, there's no really one set way of writing a song for me. Some people have their process, but I don't. Later.
Yeah, I guess that's a bit like journaling in a way. A lot of people find journaling really helpful, and it's.
I was going to
Do
say
you
that,
journal?
yeah, yeah, and then you can come, yeah. So I journal every morning, and then you come back to it, and you look at the feeling, and you go, okay, well, I can actually write a song about that. So that's why I do it.
Yeah, because I go through phases of journaling, and I actually do find it really helpful just to get everything out of your head. But I would never ever look back on it. But I guess for you, that's probably quite helpful because then you can go and write a song about it. But for me, I would rather just burn it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like you putting it out on paper is a release anyway. So
Yeah, exactly.
each to their own. I think that that's really important that you put things on paper. I think it's even scientifically proven to release. Anyway, I won't go into that depth, but yes, it is very important. I tell my mum she struggles as well sometimes, but I just write things down because like it's so important that you write it down, even if it just clears your head, especially when you're trying to remember things like notes. Write them down. You can always come back to them in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for chatting so openly about everything, and I'm sure our audience will take a lot from it. So yeah, thank you.